Bonjour tout le monde. Today I'm here to speak specifically about the ongoing genocide being perpetrated against the Uyghur and other Muslim minorities by the Chinese government, and to talk about Canada and the options that we have before us. The Green Party of Canada believes that there is an ongoing genocide being perpetrated against the Uyghur and other Muslim minorities by the Chinese government. It is important to underline that under international law, if a state believes that there is a serious risk of genocide, that it is occurring or might occur, it has an obligation to do everything within its power to prevent that genocide from taking place. This is important to mention because I understand that this, whether Canada and the Parliament, whether the government and the Parliament should adopt a definition of the actions being taken by the Chinese government against the Uyghur as genocide is taking place today. But whatever the outcome of that is, we already have an obligation under international law to do whatever is within our power to prevent even the possibility of a genocide from taking place. In the case of the genocide against the Uyghur and Muslim minorities in China, Canada therefore has the legal responsibility first to strongly condemn the genocide being perpetrated, and also to raise international awareness of the direct evidence regarding the ongoing genocide. It should also convene at the earliest opportunity with international allies to explore all options for bringing China back into compliance with international law, including the use of all available diplomatic and economic mechanisms. Canada should consider also what unilateral actions it should additionally undertake beyond its coordinated actions with international allies to secure China's compliance with international law. It is important that we understand that we are not powerless. We are, of course, a middle power, but that does not mean that our hands are tied. That does not mean that we are not able to act and to respond in the face of these crimes against humanity, in the face of this genocide. I know that this is a difficult and daunting situation because we're dealing with a permanent member of the Security Council. We're dealing with a global superpower, but this should not deter us from protecting the most vulnerable. This should not deter us from coming to the aid of those who need us. And the greater the power of the perpetrator, the greater our resolve should be as a country and as part of the global community to respond. We have already joined the calls first launched by the 13 MPs who signed a letter calling for the relocation of the 2022 Olympics. The Green Party has already joined that call. We also have mentioned and suggested that Canada consider the feasibility of hosting such Olympics or helping the International Olympic Committee to explore the possibility of alternative venues for those Olympics. Beyond those actions, though, Canada can also consider prohibiting imports from Xinjiang, imposing targeted sanctions on those responsible for violations there. And I will note that these measures are already under consideration by the United States Congress in the form of several bills that are before the Congress now. And so we see that our international allies are already mobilizing to consider what possible diplomatic and economic mechanisms are available to them. Canada should remember that we have been able to demonstrate leadership on many occasions in the face of human rights, grave human rights violations. We have mobilized the international community and our international allies to end atrocities. One example of that being the Kimberley process, and of course the movement to ban landmines. There is absolutely nothing preventing us from showing such leadership again. Canada also has said that it is very proud and proclaimed very loudly that it has a feminist foreign policy. The Prime Minister and the government has proclaimed itself as feminist, calling women's rights human rights, which of course they are, and including sexual and reproductive rights in that. In the context of the Uyghur genocide, These rights are under attack, and any government with a feminist policy would feel compelled already to act. The actions that are being perpetrated include forced sterilization, forced separation of children from their families, forced abortion, and systematic rape. All of these things, of course, have a very specific gendered component. And I underline again that if we are truly committed to a feminist foreign policy, we have more than enough evidence that these actions are taking place, and therefore more than enough reasons to feel obliged to respond. Alors, en français, le Parti vert estime qu'un génocide est actuellement perpétré par le gouvernement chinois contre les Uyghurs et d'autres minorités musulmanes. En vertu du droit international, si un État est conscient d'un risque sérieux de génocide, il doit faire tout ce qui est en son pouvoir pour empêcher que ce génocide n'ait lieu. Dans le cas du génocide contre les Uyghurs, le gouvernement du Canada a déjà la responsabilité juridique de condamner fermement et sensibiliser la communauté internationale aux preuves directes du génocide en cours. Nous avons aussi la responsabilité de réunir avec nos alliés internationaux pour explorer toutes les options permettant de ramener la Chine au respect du droit international, y compris le recours à tous les mécanismes diplomatiques et économiques disponibles. Et finalement, le Canada a aussi la responsabilité d'examiner quelles actions unilatérales le Canada devrait entreprendre en plus que ces actions coordonnées avec la communauté internationale pour assurer le respect du droit international par la Chine. Le Canada n'est pas impuissant. Je reconnais que nous sommes confrontés à une situation compliquée, une situation où le coupable est un membre permanent du Conseil de sécurité et une superpuissance mondiale. Mais néanmoins, cela ne devra jamais nous empêcher ou dissuader de défendre les plus vulnérables. Nous avons le pouvoir d'agir, et le plus de pouvoir de l'auteur des crimes est grand, le plus nous devrions être déterminés en tant que pays et en tant que membres de la communauté mondiale à réagir. Nous avons déjà fait l'appel avec plusieurs des autres partis pour la relocalisation des Jeux olympiques de 2022 de Pékin. Ça, c'est un premier pas. Nous avons aussi proposé l'exploration active de la faisabilité d'accueillir ces Jeux olympiques et aussi de soutenir les efforts d'identifier des autres possibles locales pour les prochains Jeux olympiques d'hiver de 2022. Et nous devrions aussi également envisager d'interdire la possibilité d'interdire les importations en provenance de Xinjiang et d'imposer des sanctions ciblées aux responsables des infractions commises dans cette région. Ce sont des mesures qui sont déjà en considération dans un projet de loi qui est en débat au Congrès aux États-Unis. Le Canada a un record de leadership et de mobiliser les alliés internationaux pour mettre fin aux atrocités. Nous avons vu ça pendant le processus de Kimberley et rien ne nous empêche de le faire maintenant. Nous avons l'opportunité de prendre un rôle de leadership. Nous avons la responsabilité de le faire. Et pour un gouvernement qui se proclame un gouvernement féministe, un gouvernement qui veut protéger les droits sexuels et reproductifs des femmes autour du monde, je prends cette opportunité de souligner qu'on sait déjà que les femmes ouïghurs et les autres femmes provenant des groupes minoritaires musulmans sont subies en ce moment par un programme coordonné de stérilisation forcée, de viol systématique, de séparation forcée des enfants, de leurs enfants et d'avortement forcé. Alors, si nous sommes un pays qui est fier de notre politique féministe, une politique étrangère féministe, nous avons déjà suffisamment de raisons pour agir. Nous avons déjà une obligation à agir. Et avec ça, s'il y a des questions, je prends des questions. I'm ready to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will take one question, one follow-up. I know that David Thurton from CBC has a question for you, Madam Paul. David, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Madam Paul. Thanks for taking our questions. How much should the safety of the two Michaels should be a factor in whether Canada declares what's happening in Xinjiang a genocide? And will the Green Party support the Opposition Day motion from the Conservatives on this?
I haven't read the text of the Opposition Day motion. I'm pleased to see the other party leaders, the Conservative Party leader, the NDP and the Bloc, recognizing that there is a genocide being perpetrated against the Uyghur and other Muslim minorities in Xinjiang, and that is exactly what we want to see. I called upon the Prime Minister to join that so that we could be speaking with a unified voice. It is obviously much more forceful when we have all parties united in that recognition, when we have a recognition from our parliament and from our government that this genocide is ongoing. We have an obligation to act. There is no debate about that. Whether we adopt this motion today, whether it passes or not, we already have an obligation under international law to act. We have that responsibility to act, and there is no choice. There is no choice to be made between action and protecting our citizens that are being unfairly and unlawfully detained by the Chinese. We must continue to coordinate internationally with our allies to put as much pressure as possible to see the release of the two Michaels. At the same time, we must join with the growing international consensus about the crimes against humanity that are being perpetrated by China within their territories, and consider all of the actions that are at the disposal of the international community and Canada as a country in order to bring China back into compliance with international law.
So we should not wait till the Michaels are released to declare this a genocide. That should not be a factor.
We cannot wait. First, as I said, and just for background, I know that people in Canada are still getting to know me. I'm a lawyer. I am someone that I have a master's degree from Princeton in public and international affairs. I worked as an advisor at the International Criminal Court. I worked in global affairs in our political affairs department on human rights issues, and also as the EU director for an international conflict prevention NGO. And so, David, I don't take using these terms lightly at all. I'm very aware what it means to identify or to define actions as a genocide. These actions fit very clearly and squarely into the classic definitions of genocide. And so this is something that our government should acknowledge. There is more than enough evidence to acknowledge that. And there is no reason to wait. Again, we have to do all that we can to secure the release of our citizens that are being unfairly and unlawfully detained. We need to continue to rally the international community on their behalf. At the same time, a fact is a fact, and in this case, the facts are undeniable. It is very important for Canada to acknowledge that. Though I will say again that under international law, Canada has an obligation to act even if it suspects that actions may be taking place that would amount to a genocide. And so we do not need to wait until that definition has been adopted here or elsewhere. We need to act now, and we have an obligation to act now.
Thank you, David. Does anybody else have a question? Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions? Are there any other questions for Madame Paul? Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions pour Madame Paul? No? Thank you. Well, this will conclude today's press conference. Ceci conclut la conférence de presse d'aujourd'hui. Merci à tout le monde. Thank you for everyone for coming today.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.